Hello and welcome to this year's Producers Advisory Council. I'm Marcus Drymon, an Assistant Extension Professor at Mississippi State University, and I lead the Marine Fisheries Ecology program, a team of three: Amanda Jefferson, Brian Huerta, and Matt Jargowski. Today I'll be giving you a brief overview of some of the research and extension work that we did in 2020, and I'm going to use two examples of each. I'll talk about two research projects that we completed this year and two extension projects that we're particularly proud of. The first research project I'll talk about is our bottom longline survey. Now, this is a survey we started in 2006, and this is work that we do every year, including up to now into the present. Now, this bottom longline survey is used to assess the distribution, the relative abundance, movements and migrations, as well as age, growth, and maturity for a variety of fish, including coastal sharks and species like red drum and red snapper. Now, in 2020, we completed 65 bottom longline sets, which captured more than 400 fish. Now, most of these fish were tagged and released. A nice synthesis of this work can be found in the paper that we published this year, Defining Sex-Specific Habitat Suitability for a Northern Gulf of Mexico Shark Assemblage. This paper was published in Frontiers in Marine Science and is available on our website. Now, I mentioned we capture red drum on our bottom longline survey. Shown here is an adult red drum, an example of one of the fish that we regularly encounter. So in 2020, we directed focus into better understanding the age, growth, mortality, and relative abundance of red drum alongside assessing their habitat suitability. And again, we did this by looking at over a decade's worth of data. We compiled all of this information and published this in a technical report titled Understanding Population Dynamics of Adult Red Drum. So I want to switch gears now and move away from research and talk about the extension work we did in 2020. And I'll start by giving you an update on the great red snapper count. Now, as a reminder, this was a Gulf-wide project to estimate the absolute abundance of red snapper in the Gulf of Mexico. And Mississippi State University's role in this project was to lead the stakeholder engagement aspect. Now, one of the really neat things we did as part of this work was survey 1,000 anglers. And we wanted to know, were they aware of the great red snapper count? We wanted to assess their satisfaction with red snapper populations and determine their satisfaction with red snapper regulations. And we can see from this figure on the right-hand side that, by and large, most anglers were at least somewhat, if not very satisfied with both red snapper populations and red snapper regulations. And interestingly, perhaps the most interesting thing we found is that anglers that were aware of the great red snapper count were more likely to be satisfied with both red snapper populations and regulations. In other words, it appeared as if the extension efforts that we were conducting, our efforts to reach the anglers about this project, were at least somewhat successful. We made two conference presentations last year presenting the results of this outreach. One of those was at the Mississippi-Alabama Sea Grant Consortium Bays and Bayous Conference, and the other one was at the American Fisheries Society. So while the great red snapper count focused on anglers across the entire Gulf of Mexico, the other extension project I want to highlight focused just on commercial and charter for hire fishers in the state of Mississippi. And this was specifically efforts that we did in response to COVID-19. And I'll talk about two components of that. First, we developed a local fishing guide to better advertise and highlight opportunities available to anglers in the state of Mississippi. And we provided this to tourism agencies in the hopes that we could get charter for hire fishers a little bit more business during the COVID-19 crisis. But another aspect of this work dealt with commercial fishermen, and that was a partnership with a program called Genuine Mississippi, which is an effort to better brand products that are made or crafted in the great state of Mississippi. So we were able to partner with this effort and develop a category called Caught Wild. And with some funding that we were able to get from Sea Grant, we were able to pay 1-year memberships for participating charter fishermen to the Genuine Mississippi program. Now, in addition to those 2 research and 2 extension projects that we highlighted, we continued our Gulf Coast Fishermen newsletter in 2020. We put out 4 quarterly issues, and I want to thank everybody that subscribes to the Gulf Coast Fishermen and thank each of you for sending feedback on those issues every quarter. Now in 2020, like most folks, we were unable to get out and really interact with the general public like we typically like to do. So the majority of our outreach was virtual. So we conducted 17 events, booths, presentations, and seminars during the month of January and February and right up to the beginning of March before things shut down. During these events, we were able to interact with, a fair number of people, close to 800 people. But after March, the majority of our outreach, or really all of our outreach, was virtual. So we really stepped up our efforts in social media. We made many, many more social media posts, which had a pretty large reach. We were proud of our reach on Facebook, Instagram. Nearly 250,000 people reached with the various posts and graphics that we were able to put online. So while we are definitely looking forward to getting out and interacting with you in person next year, we had to settle for a largely virtual outreach effort in 2020. Now, while I only had time to highlight 2 of the research and 2 of the extension projects that we worked on in 2020, we were busy publishing a lot of other work as well. So shown here is a list of 6 other papers that we published in 2020, and I just want to note that links to all of these papers are available on our website. Last but not least, I want to note 3 additional extension publications that we were able to complete in 2020, and I want to take a second to highlight one of those, and that is Fishes. Fishermen invested in science, healthy ecosystems, and sustainability. Now, we are particularly proud of this book, and this book will accompany an in-person class that we hope to offer very, very soon. So please stay tuned for more information about that. So thank you for your time today. I look forward to hearing your feedback. Please reach out to me with any questions. My email address is marcus.drymon@msstate.edu.